I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be very honest. I really don't know how much more my heart can take. All of that stress. That game did not need to be that stressful. In my personal opinion, it did not need to be that stressful. Missed extra points, dropped passes, game close, sacks, everything, down to the final drive for LA where it shouldn't have been at all. In my personal opinion, it just shouldn't have been. Jalen Carter gets the sack to save the game and basically save your season, because my feelings were at an all-time low on that final drive, because it was just completely reminding me of Atlanta Falcons, of Washington Commanders, that complete breakdown at the end of the game in a final 2-minute drive, 2-minute drill. I thought Matt Stafford was going to go downfield and win LA the game. That's just the way everything was feeling. The way the defense was playing prevent defense. They were going from away from what their strengths were. You were sending the blitz. But then thankfully Matt Stafford and the receivers missed some throws, and Jalen Carter is a goddamn beast. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. Also forget to mention that Saquon Barkley is a fucking beast, because the dude dominated once again with a little bit of resemblance to Shady's game against Detroit so many years ago in a goddamn blizzard. Barkley was amazing. What was not amazing was your quarterback, was your play calling, was your offensive line, I would say, as a whole. There were a lot of uncharacteristic things from the offensive line today. Interior offensive line, just some uncharacteristic penalties taking to where you're pushing yourself out of tush-push range. The play calling as a whole today from the Kellen Moore perspective was just complete garbage. You're disregarding the run the entire way in a lot of sequences of this game, forcing Jalen to pass and pass and pass and pass. And I'm not giving Jalen Hurts a break either. He had the huge run on the first drive of the game, the 44-plus yard touchdown run, which was electric to open the game up. But then basically, pass game really couldn't get going, and I guess you can also throw that to the weather conditions out there today, because even LA had their issues with drops, but it just felt like overall, because LA was able to get their pass game going to certain extents at some point during this game. Hell, when Matt Stafford made that deep pass to Puka Nacua at the end, where Darius Slay is trying to jump up to either knock away a ball or grab the interception, oh my God, I thought the game was over from right there, because there was no reason for it to get that close. There just wasn't. And that goes on the offense. That goes on your play calling. You could put it on Jake Elliott as well for missing extra points in this game. For some reason, this guy can get field goals, no problem. He just can't make extra points. Oh, my God. In the defense, I do have a gripe to pick with the defense on that one drive near the end of the game, right after Saquon's second touchdown. But we will get into all of that stuff tonight, because, my God, there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this game as the Eagles advance to the NFC Championship game, which will be played in Philadelphia against the Washington Commanders. Josh Harris makes his makes his presence known. That's going to be a hell of a game. Oh boy, people might be boycotting the Sixers for a little bit, even though they're probably already doing that right now. But before we get into all of that, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports. And if you are new to the channel, I definitely recommend that you do hit that subscribe button. It would do me such a great deal of service with the YouTube algorithm. You can also drop a like. You can also leave a comment in the comment section down below. I love to interact with you guys down there. You can also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. It is a great deal. Do not pass it up. I don't know if it's going to get you much off of the final home game of the year in the NFC Championship game. I don't know how much. It's $20 off, but I don't know how much those tickets are going to cost. You could try, though. Or you can also try for, some other tickets like concerts, Flyers, Sixers. I saw Sixers games as low as $1 in the upcoming games in the upcoming months. So maybe you can get some free tickets there. I don't know how much they're going to jack up the fees, though, with that situation. But yeah, it's a great deal. Don't pass it up. You can also use the code TTP Sports down below. Well, not the code. You can also follow me at TTP Sports on TikTok and Instagram for real shorts and all that great stuff. So, Eagles, they beat the LA Rams 28-22. Personally, the game shouldn't have been that close. Saquon Barkley was great. The defense was great for most parts of the game. I would say for at least 90% of the game, the defense was great. The other stuff that I really didn't like, though, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't like in this game. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is definitely one of those guys that I did not like, but there's also even some other things that I didn't like in terms of not the way the game was, but injuries. You lose Quinyon Mitchell on the first drive for LA in this game. He tackles Matt Stafford. Looked like Stafford got banged up a little bit too with the rib situation possibly, but Quinyon favoring, I believe it was his left shoulder or right shoulder. It was one of the shoulders going onto the sideline into the medical tent. Then he goes into the locker room, and then eventually after halftime, he is officially ruled out with a shoulder injury. I don't know what the extent of that is going to be. It'll be a huge loss if he cannot go in the NFC Championship game. Hopefully this injury is not insanely serious, but it has to be something to where it kept him out of the game. I really hope it's not like a collarbone situation. I just hope he didn't separate his shoulder or something like that. I have no idea what happened. I'm not sure we're going to get any type of update on Quinyon Mitchell here as the night goes along. You probably won't get any updates on him at all. Actually, there's a tweet right here from Olivia Reiner of the Philadelphia Inquirer. She said, just spoke to Quinyon Mitchell in the locker room, who was in good spirits. He said he's fine after his shoulder injury. When I asked him if he had any long-term concerns, he said, no, I'm going to be good. So we'll take that with a grain of salt until we get some official injury updates with Quinyon. But if you get it from the man himself, especially in a playoff run, he's going to say he's fine. But hopefully that does bode well going down the stretch, because you are going to need Saquon in this secondary, because there were a little bit of, missing holes when you had Isaiah Rodgers in there. But then Isaiah Rodgers had a huge fumble recovery after a fantastic punch out from Jalen Carter, and Jalen Carter was an absolute beast in today's game. Like I said, defensively, for I would say 90-95% of this game, the defense was great. They did what they had to do. They shut down the run game of LA, and they really prevented their receivers from doing much for a lot of this. If you go to the stats for LA, yeah, Matt Stafford does have 324 yards in today's game. He went 26 of 44. Had 2 touchdowns. Williams, he ran for 19 carries for 106 yards. Puka Nacua, he had 97 catches, but, a lot of that is escalated from that final catch in today's game, but he only had 6 receptions on 14 targets. Like I said, there was a lot of stuff dealing with the weather as well. There were a lot of drops on the LA perspective as well as the Eagles perspective. Robinson, he had 3 catches for 74 yards, only 7 targets there. Cooper Kupp had 61 yards on 5 catches. Higbee, he had a touchdown in this game. 54 receiving yards, and then, spread out through the rest of the receiving side for LA. But offensively, a lot of turnovers for LA. 2 fumbles from Matt Stafford, 1 fumble from Williams on the punch-out from Jalen Carter, and the Eagles recovered every single one of those. So just huge stuff right there. I believe one of the fumbles was forced out by Nolan Smith, which was recovered by Zach Bond. So just some great stuff. Apparently Kenny Gainwell, is it on fumble reception? So Rodgers had one of the fumble receptions, Bond had one of the fumbles, and I think Cooper DeJean picked up one of the fumbles. Cooper DeJean fumbled off of one of the punt returns, and he got the ball right back. So I guess Kenny Gainwell picked up one of the fumbles too. So that is definitely interesting right there. Jalen Hurts also fumbled during one of the situations where on his many sacks today, because Jalen Hurts, he took a lot of sacks. Got sacked 7 times and he lost 63 yards. Total in that process. Hurts's awareness, his anticipation, his just ability to look downfield. And yes, Jalen Hurts did get injured in this game, took a very ugly hit, and it looked like a knee that should not bent. Jalen Hurts did return into the game, and mobility situations, he does take a safety in this game as well, which was very fucking frustrating at the same time. So, like I said, for Jalen Hurts, the first drive that he had, everything was looking good. He gets that huge 44-yard run into the end zone for a touchdown. Some great stuff there from Jalen Hurts, of course. Jake Elliott misses that extra point. Like I said with Jake Elliott, it was either he makes all of his field goals and then he misses all the extra points. It doesn't make any goddamn sense with Jake Elliott. He did make some huge field goals for you, but, missing those extra points definitely would have came back to haunt you if LA found a way to win this game. But back to Jalen Hurts, it was just a lot of ugliness. A.J. Brown only had a couple of catches in this game. He was targeted quite a few times. There was a play, I believe it was right before halftime, where Jalen Hurts dime right to A.J. Brown near the end zone. It was around the 10-yard line. A.J. Brown bobbles it, lands out of bounds, and the pass is incomplete. So A.J. Brown overall had a terrible game, especially with everything after with the goddamn book last week. So that whole process is now fucking annoying. But A.J. Brown's got to be better. He's got to lock in better. Got to make that catch. There were certain plays where you just got to make the catch, and it's even going to the defensive side, too. The first drive for LA where they scored their touchdown, the very first pass that Matthew Stafford threw was right in the direction of Slay. Very good coverage on the receiver. Slay had it in his hands, bounced right out. Isaiah Rodgers gets absolutely out-muscled on the ball, and this, I believe, is on the second drive of the game for LA when they're going downfield. Deep ball lands into the hand of Rodgers, gets pulled out of his hands by the LA receiver, and it's a lot of gain yards there for LA, which could have been an interception for the Eagles. I think Cooper DeJean even had a chance for an interception. Thankfully, you were able to force some fumbles into this game, which was very huge in that process because the defense really needed to feast it on that point. And like I said, I'm not really harping on the defense to a major extent. Like I said, with the defense, the one thing that just really bothered me after Saquon Barkley gets that second touchdown in the fourth quarter, where you make it a 2-score game, where you're thinking the game is over at this point, you allow LA to basically run their own version of a 2-minute drill with like 4 minutes left, and they go down the field in less than 2 minutes, and they score an easy touchdown. Just easy completions here, there, everywhere. They get an easy score, and they make it a 1-score game, 6-point game. And offensively, the play calling to seal the game out, saying it terribly would just be bluntly. Well, saying it bluntly would just be the play calling was plain terrible. I don't know why we're just ignoring Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts rolls out to his left, gets sacked, loses a lot of yards there, and then you decide to run it with Saquon on the 3rd and long, and you're forced to punt the ball away. I don't get it. There were a lot of things that were just very questionable. I feel like, especially when the weather conditions were getting increasingly worse, because the weather got worse as the game went along. In the second half, you saw all the snow that was piling onto the field. Why are we forcing so many passes? Why are we just not letting Saquon do Saquon things? Isn't that what you're supposed to do when the weather gets bad? When it snows? When it rains? When passing conditions definitely aren't ideal? Aren't you supposed to rely on your offensive line? Aren't you supposed to rely on your running game with that offensive line? It just, a lot of things that didn't make sense, personally. There were just a lot of stalled drives where the offense couldn't do anything. Jalen Hurts taking a lot of sacks, taking himself out of field goal range billions of times in this game. Felt like he got himself out of field goal range 75,667 times. That's how many times it felt like he was sacked in LA territory, taking the Eagles out of field goal range. And yes, that goes to the point where, oh, you're in field goal range. Oh, we don't trust Jake Elliott. At least give your kicker a chance if you're not going to go for it on 4th down. Why are we taking sacks so many times, Jalen? There's one thing to respect him not turning the ball over, and yes, that is still something Jalen Hurts is not doing. He's not turning the ball over. But then there comes at a time when you just need awareness. His awareness, certain times, is just so bad. It is so bad to where he has multiple defenders in his face. He's taking so long just to read what's even happening in the pocket. All this time, all this space, he's trying to find a way to make something happen. Up, takes a sack. Up, doesn't throw the ball away. Up, that's a loss of 10 yards. Up, that's a loss of 15 yards, maybe even 20 yards, because Jalen Hurts is running all the way to his back, doesn't want to throw the ball away, trying to play a hero ball in that possession, and you take yourself out of a very good chance to put more points up on the board. That was what Jalen Hurts was doing the entire game. His first drive was really good. And yes, he made some good passes that should have been caught by some receivers. There were sequences where Dallas Goedert was doing his thing, certain sequences when Devontae Smith was doing his thing. A.J. Brown really wasn't a factor in this game. Really, the biggest catch that A.J. Brown had was at the late stages of the game, converts a 4th down, which was very huge for the Eagles. And there's also things to look at some offensive mistakes. The interior offensive line, looking at, Becton, Dickerson, Juergens, letting a lot of the pass rush for LA break through, just getting, yes, there's criticism to Jalen on that point for taking sacks, not throwing the ball away. There's also criticism towards your interior offensive line to where they're just allowing so much pressure on Jalen to where he has no time to react in the pocket, and that also leads to sacks. So your interior offensive line didn't do anything. Becton, just some questionable decisions on blocking. On the first Saquon touchdown, he had amazing blocking on that drive. The rest of it was just, what are we doing here? And then when you get the turnover on one of the fumbles, you go down, you're in really good position to get another touchdown. You're forced to a field goal because for some reason, I have no idea what the play calling decision here is. You're on 3rd and short. 3rd and short, probably on the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line. I don't know why you're not tush pushing it. Why aren't you tush pushing it? Is it just because you're afraid after Jalen's injury and all that stuff? I have no idea what's going on. You think, because for some reason, what also doesn't make sense, this is a very tiny nitpick here to Saquon Barkley. I have no idea why Saquon struggles in very short yardage. I don't know what the issue is right there to why he just can't pick up 2 yards to get into the end zone. And it's also because the defense is completely selling out to stop Saquon. But I would like my running back to find a way to break hole and break loose, even though all the other amazing things that Saquon does. But going back to that 3rd and short, 4th and short, we're basically right at the goal line. Why aren't you tush pushing it? Why? You decide to tush push it on 4th down. And then the most uncharacteristic thing that I have seen out of Lane Johnson and in my entire life, to where a false start happens and it moves you back 5 yards and you're forced to kick a field goal. And yes, a lot of people will probably say in that situation, kicking a field goal is stupid. Thankfully, Jake Elliott made it. Yeah, you can also question not being aggressive and going up by multiple scores instead of just the 3 points. Yes, it definitely is valid in that area. I don't know. There definitely just were a lot of things with the play calling today. It just left so much to be desired. And we're saying that basically week after week at this point. They're leaving way too much, meat on the bones. It's insane. If I just go over the notes that I have here, basically, if I'm looking after the first drive, after Jalen scores that touchdown, okay, you got, a couple of drives after that, you go 3 and out, but then Saquon gets that huge 62-yard run, which is very huge right there. A couple of good runs by Jalen and Saquon, and then Jalen takes the horrible sack. This is like in the second quarter at this rate, where it takes them out of field goal range. This is one of the many times that happens after your defense is just forcing LA to go 3 and out, punting the ball and everything like that. So that's annoying. Mailata gets a false start. This is basically, I believe, at this point where LA punted it and they got it right around your 1-yard line or something like that. Mailata false start, screen to Saquon, he gets 16 yards there. Gainwell gets 10 yards, Jalen runs for 11, and then Jalen sacked, fumble, loss of yards, takes you out of field goal range once again, and that was basically at the end of the first half. Defense forces LA for a 3 and out to start the third quarter. This was officially when Quinyon was rolled out with the shoulder injury. Eagles go 3 and out. LA, they eventually go down, get a field goal. Huge sack by Jalix Hunt to force LA to kick the field goal. Dallas Goedert, they do their things. Jalen Hurts takes another very bad sack. That's when he goes into the medical tent where he was, his leg looked, it didn't look pretty when he took that sack. Elliott makes another field goal. LA goes 3 and out. Hurts comes back. Hurts takes a safety in their own goddamn territory. 16-15 game. And then this is when all the turnovers start to happen. Isaiah Rodgers with the fumble recovery. This is when you try to do stupid things in the end zone where you don't tush push it on 3rd down. You try to tush push it on 4th down, and Lane Johnson takes the most uncharacteristic penalty that I've ever seen in my life, forces Jake Elliott to kick the field goal. Thankfully, Bond and the defense, they do their things. Nolan Smith forces the fumble. Bond recovers it. Once again, you have to go down to kick a field goal because your offense can't go downfield. Thankfully, A.J. Brown, he made a catch on 4th down, which helped you in that situation, but really not for much there. Defense still doing their thing, sacking Matthew Stafford. Ojomo, I believe, was one of the defenders that sacked Stafford after that. Saquon Barkley with the 78-yard touchdown run, which you thought sealed the game off. But then LA goes down the field basically in under 2 minutes to make it a very close game for no reason. Then offensively, Jalen takes another terrible sack on a second down play, which was incredibly stupid. And then LA comes back on the field. They try to do it in a 2-minute drill. Thankfully, Jalen Carter is a fucking beast. And that's how you win the game. Just very annoying stuff there. Basically just read through, like you see through the notes, there was nothing much going offensively the rest of the game. Really, offensively, it was Jake Elliott making field goals and Saquon Barkley. That was it. There was no passes that really stood out. The passing game really just could not get going all day. And could you factor that into the weather conditions? Yes, but LA was also able to get their passing going at certain extents. So it just didn't look pretty. It didn't look pretty again. Once again, high-end talent bails you out, and yes, it's the playoffs, and basically at any type of win you'll take at the end of the day. But this passing game really needs to get going. It really needs to get going. AJ Brown needs to be factored in more, and he has to fucking catch the ball when the ball is thrown in his way at certain extents. If you're not going to get many targets throughout the game, you got to make the few targets that you do have matter. And that was very, very uncharacteristic from A.J. Brown making those drops, because I don't believe he had any drops this season. So he has 2 drops in the game, which was utter crucial. Thankfully, it didn't come back to bite them in the ass. Almost did, but thankfully it didn't. You get Devontae Smith involved more. Dallas Goedert had his impact for like 1 or 2 drives. That was it. And then it was basically just Saquon and Jake Elliott. As much as we want to cremate Jake Elliott for missing extra points, still huge for kicking field goals, though, because the offensive drives just kept stalling. There's no reason how you cannot score a touchdown on the 1-yard line. I don't know why you're not pushing it twice in a row. And then you're taking penalties that get you out of that range. Very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Looking at the rest of the stats for the Eagles today, Jalen Hurts, 15 of 20. In the passing attempts, only 128 yards, sacked 7 times, loss of 63 yards. Saquon Barkley, fantastic, 26 carries for 205 yards. Just dominated the Rams once again. 2 touchdowns, his longest was 78. Jalen Hurts, he had 70 yards on the ground. He had that touchdown on the first drive. But basically, since then, that was the best drive for Jalen the entire day. Really, besides that, nothing else. Nothing else from Jalen. And hopefully, whatever injury he dealt with that came out of the game for a little bit, even though he didn't miss a drive. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Dallas Goedert, he had the most receptions or most yards of the day on the receiving side, 4 catches for 56 yards. Saquon Barkley, 4 catches for 27. Devontae Smith, 4 catches for 21. A.J. Brown, 2 catches for 14, targeted 7 times. Kenny Gainwell had 1 catch for 10. Only 15 receptions from your receivers today compared to LA's 26. LA had 324 receiving yards, you only had 128. So there is definitely a big difference right there. Defensively, just great stuff. Slay, I thought, had a really good game besides the interception that he did miss. I thought Slay was really good. Zach Bond, amazing once again. Burks, he did fine. Burks did good. And, Weller wasn't expecting him to do that good, but, in replace of Nakobe Dean, Burks had a good game. Had a couple of tackles for loss right there. 4 solo tackles, 6 tackles in total. Good stuff there. Isaiah Rodgers definitely wasn't targeted as much as I thought he was going to be. Came up with the fumble recovery, which was always huge. Jalen Carter, beast, as always. Cooper DeJean stopped some runs, that maybe could have been worse. Nolan Smith with the forced fumble. Trotter got in there for a little bit. Jomo, he had a sack in there as well. Josh Sweat stopping some runs. Jalix Hunt had a sack as well. Like I said, hopefully this Quinion stuff isn't too serious as we're pushing into next week against the Washington Commanders. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. I want to see if there's anything else here. Don't think there is. I don't think there is. Don't think there is. Jordan Mailata is joining the A.J. Brown Books Club. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Jordan, don't. You'll make some drops. You'll drop the ball a little bit. Please don't. Please don't. Nolan Smith in 2 playoff games this year, 12 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 forced fumble. And he also ran onto the field with the Kobe Dean jersey in this game, so some fun stuff there from Nolan Smith. He's really breaking out here, and it's really great to see. It really is. Let's see what else is there. So yeah, now they have the time confirmation for next Sunday's championship game. It's going to be at 3 o'clock at the link, so we get the afternoon version, afternoon tilt for the NFC championship game. Good stuff there. Good stuff there. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? I don't see anything else. Nope. No, don't see anything else. We do got a couple of voicemails here, looking at the overall stats from this game, team perspective-wise. The Rams had more total yards than the Eagles by around 52. Rams had 402 yards. Eagles had 350. Time of possession. Is the time of possession here? Eagles controlled the time of possession by like a little bit over a minute. 30 minutes and 54 seconds to LA's 29:06. Both teams only took 3 penalties. It definitely didn't feel like that. Eagles penalties felt more drastic, personally. Especially where it's offensive penalties that, kind of screw yourself over at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else here that is uber important on the Twitter side. Just another really frustrating game. And yeah, I would say, I think a lot of people are in agreement right here on Twitter that Kellen Moore does not matter if he leaves this year. Yeah, you can go have the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job. Go ahead. Your play calling is definitely nothing too spectacular. My personal opinion, definitely nothing too spectacular. I don't care how the season ends. Kellen can go. That's funny. That is funny. Yeah, the near collapse took 50 years off my life. My God, Sean. I know. Yeah, way too close for comfort, and Barkley is the man. I do agree there, Tyler. But let's get to the Anytime Hotline. We might as well do that. Nothing else stat-wise here, nothing else Twitter-wise that I'm seeing injury or anything. I don't see anything from Nick Sirianni yet. And also, it'd probably be more beneficial for me to end a little bit earlier so I can edit my stuff for shorts and then eventually edit Brodes when he does his thing later on. So let's get to the Anytime Hotline. Let's get to Sean, and let's see what Sean's reaction is. I'm sure he's as stressed as everybody else was.
Oh, Amadeo, I'm getting too old for this shit, man. And we got 1, maybe 2 more weeks of this. My heart can't take it. My takeaways from this game are these. Defensively, I think they switched it off after the Barkley touchdown, which looked like it salted the game. Pretty bad defense at the end, but credit Jalen Carter for making the big play.
Beast.
Offensively, in those conditions, it's tough to be real critical. My 2 main critiques from this game are, number 1, can we even field a lineup next week? If Quenyon Mitchell is out, advantage Washington with McLaurin. And what's the status of Jalen Hurts? If Jalen Hurts is strictly a pocket passer, this team's in trouble. Number 2, for all the good he did again today, the Jake Elliott missed extra point shit's got to stop. It damn near cost him today. That's 3 missed extra points in the playoffs so far by Elliott. If you're good enough to make the field goals, you should be good enough to make the extra points. You can't be pissing points away in the postseason. Not a pretty win. I honestly thought when Nakua caught that ball on the sidelines, they were going to lose at the end. The football gods would be against them for what's going on with the Wildfires. But they survived. Survive in advance sets up a big-time game next week. But I got to recover from this one first.
Yeah. To Jake Elliott, doesn't make sense. He does not make sense. There is no reason to where this guy hits 30-yarders, 40-yarders with ease, especially in these weather conditions. He was hitting them with ease. And you can't make extra points when those are supposed to be chip shots? It doesn't make sense. And yeah, it nearly did cost them. It definitely did, because let's see, if Jake Elliott hits all of his extra points, that's 3 more points on the board for the Eagles. They probably wouldn't have to stress out that final point of the game. Yeah, you wouldn't have to, because it would have been, 3 extra points. It would have been 31-22. You wouldn't have to stress it out. Exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't have to. So it just doesn't make sense. Hopefully the Quinyon updates, him saying he's fine, and most likely, I'm sure Quinyon probably will find a way to play next Sunday. There's no way that they can't start him, I guess, at the end of the day, even if he is limited. What else? Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what's wrong with Jalen. Likewise, if he is forced to be a pocket passer, that is a huge disadvantage, because his awareness in the pocket, it isn't the best. It isn't the best. He takes sacks at probably the worst possible times. He just does. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh yeah, Kellen Moore leaving for a head coaching job will not be the end of the world. No, it will not. Regardless of the result of whatever this playoff run is, Kellen Moore is probably gone, most likely. Even though that would be the 3rd new offensive coordinator, or the 2nd next offensive coordinator in 2 years. You gotta get another one. I don't know. I'm too stressed to even think about anything else. So, I'm gonna call it here, everybody. I got food waiting for me as well downstairs, so gotta eat that. Gotta do some editing, and more editing, and more editing, and more editing. So, I appreciate y'all for tuning out. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Appreciate y'all for joining in. And I'll see you next time.